Hello gamers! Today we'll be taking a look at a 2 to 6 player card game by University Games called Man Bites Dog, which is a card playing game where you try to make a funny headline to get points to win the game or something. On one of our many trips to Barnes & Noble's, my partner and I went and checked out the board game section. I always love to go look over there before I go look at some books, that way I can kind of even out my journey. While we were there, she saw this game, Man Bites Dog. And with the number of kind of interesting card games that have been coming out, especially some of them having to do with word games like Paperback and Unspeakable Word, I think one, the Cthulhu game, we figured we might check this out. It wasn't terribly expensive and she was interested in it, so we picked it up. Let's see what's inside. Inside of Man Bites Dog, you'll find this small instruction card, and about 106 of these cards, the majority of them being word cards with an associated point value. And there are 3 of these exclusive point doubling cards that are also in the deck. At least the picture of the dog's nice. To play the game, the dealer shuffles up the cards and deals out 5 to each player. From here, you try and make a structurally sound headline. Cruel actor, indicted, rehab, DNA. I can't seem to make a real sentence or title out of this, so you can discard up to 3 cards and draw 3 new ones. Let's see, indicted, 25, DNA, and rehab. I'm going to keep these 3. Get rid of 2, draw 2 more. Missing lover indicted. That's about the best I can do. So I would play that for a score of 85 points. Fun. And everyone goes around the table, playing their cards, scoring up their points. The object of the game is to get 500 points. However, if you can't make a headline, you get 0 points. Like this hand. Bizarre, cruel actor, rehab, DNA. Cruel actor, DNA, bizarre. Nope, can't make one. 0 points, I guess. And that's it. That's basically all that happens in Man Bites Dog. And I have to say, this is one of the games that I did not enjoy that much. It all seems very random. The point values on the cards don't seem to match up with really how difficult it is to use them in any meaningful way. And sometimes you just get a hand and then suddenly you can't make anything, so you get 0 points. There's also arguments on what constitutes a structurally sound headline. Sometimes I thought one that would work, my partner didn't, and vice versa. And I can only see that getting even more confusing in a game with more players. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate card games, obviously. I have a bunch of card games I love. And I don't mind word games. I'm not very good at them, but I think there's intelligent ways to do them, such as games like Paperback or Unspeakable Word, or even games like Lexigo or Scrabble. These are all viable word games, but this just doesn't seem to work on any meaningful level. Let's check out how I scored it. For fun, I gave Man Bites Dog a score of 4. Now, it's not painful to play. I just wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to play it, so it gets a little bit below average. Every once in a while you'll have a funny combination, but most of them it's just not even about being the funniest, it's just about which one you could put together. Strategy? For this game I gave it a score of 1. Like I said, the point values on the cards seem very arbitrary, and it all just comes down to, will my words make a sentence? There's no real strategy in it. You don't get to hold on to cards for later. You get 5 new cards at the beginning of the round. So there's no discernible strategy that I could even come up with. For ease, I gave Man Bites Dog a score of 4. It is easy. You deal out the cards and try and make a sentence. The only difficult thing is then trying to decide, is that a legitimate headline, or can I use this as a verb or not, etc. Replayability. There are 106 cards in it, but even when my partner and I played only 2-player, we went through almost the entire deck to get 500 points. So that means we, as a 2-player game, saw every card in the deck already after 1 playthrough. Therefore, I gave this game a score of 2. sometimes the cards are going to be shuffled up and you can get new headlines, but you're going to go through the deck multiple times in a 3, 4, 5, 6 player game. So these same sentences might even come out in the same game you're playing. And I don't think that's really good. Randomness? Well, here, this one gets a -5 for me. It all just determines what cards you got. Did I get that 50-point one? Did I get the exclusive to double my hand? Shoot, I got 2 exclusives. Does that mean I quadruple my hand? I don't know. It's all very random and doesn't have the comedic punch to warrant that randomness. Setup? Very simple for this game. It gets a score of -1. Again, you shuffle it up and deal out 5 to everyone. That's pretty simple, luckily for that. Cost? I give this game a score of -2 for cost. You can find it now, I think, in like Walmart and Target and these types of stores, and we saw it at Barnes & Noble's. It's about $15, which again is, for me, is a little bit expensive. I mean, there are a lot of cards in it, but they're not really worth it. Players. For Man Bites Dog, I gave it a score of 5 for players. It can play up to 6 players, which that many rather, which is good. And it still plays with 2 players, even at the low end of it, so it works for that whole range pretty well. Theme. For Man Bites Dog, I gave it a theme of 1. Now, the picture of a dog is about the nicest thing. Otherwise, it's just a word with a circle point value. And that's really all you get from it. You never get to try and really work and come up with a funny headline because you're really constricted with the 5 cards that you had. Maybe if you got 10 cards and could only use 5, you'd have the freedom to make a actually funny headline. And then maybe if there was some scoring based on how funny it was, something like that, then it might accomplish some of the goals I think it sets out to achieve. But otherwise, it doesn't really come together on any meaningful way. Quality? I gave Man Bites Dog a quality score of 2. Now, I probably should have given it 1, but it is fairly decent. I don't really understand why the box needs to be this big. I mean, it's basically twice as big as it needs to be, and I guess that's just so it stands out on the shelf, but that also means it takes up more room on my game shelf, when it's not really even worth that. Otherwise, it's just a basic deck of cards with not really any great artwork or anything else going for it, so it's lucky it doesn't get a 1. In duration, I gave it a score of 2. Now that, fortunately for it, the game doesn't last that long. I guess it could take a little longer with the higher players, 5 and 6. I probably wouldn't even touch it with that. With the lower players, it doesn't really take that long. And that way, the luck aspect of it doesn't really grind on me that bad. It's just not very good game design. Altogether, I gave Man Bites Dog a score of 41. This is not a game I would really recommend, and probably not one that will stay in my collection for very long. It might be something that's going to get regifted to somebody who's not a gamer.